Hello, this is wmpyr. In this video, I want to share with you something that I learned from watching a pretty interesting YouTube video. Basically, this was from a Japanese TV show, and two comedians, I think they're comedians, they went to a university. They went to go visit this university where there's this very interesting university professor there. He is a professor of physics, but he also teaches martial arts there, and this is like a women's university, so he was teaching like women's self-defense but using the concepts of physics. So he basically called it like physics jiu-jitsu or something along those lines, but that was the main idea. And so these two comedians, they meet up with the professor, and their first impression is like, man, you don't look like a martial arts instructor at all. So they're like, wow, you just look like a regular guy, you know, just like an academic professor. And he's like, yes, you know, I'm just a regular guy. And they're like, are you really strong? And he's like, no, I'm super weak. And they're like, man, you're super weak and you're supposed to be teaching martial arts. They were just like, this doesn't sound very convincing. And he said, well, the main concept is, you know, I'm taking self-defense back to its roots, where basically the weakest person is able to utilize strategy and leverage and the knowledge of physics to overcome someone that's bigger, stronger, you know, faster, and those kinds of things. So they're like, okay, whatever. And you could tell they're not convinced at all. So they go to a dojo type setting. It's actually more like a PE type place. And there, the guy is now wearing a gi, and I noticed he was wearing a black belt. I don't know a black belt of what, but he did have a black belt on. And the other two, the comedians, are also there. And they start off with this very interesting testing thing that they start off on their knees. Okay, so they're sitting seiza. If you've studied Aikido, you know what that is, but it's just basically kneeling down position. And from there, one person is just grabbing onto the other person's wrists and not allowing them to raise their arm up like this. So the arm is being pinned down right here. Okay, so the hands are just like right here, right on the waist or on the thighs, and the other person is just holding on, and you know, holding down with all their weight and applying pressure. So the whole idea is for the person that's being pinned like that to try and lift their arms up. And, you know, basically unsuccessful at doing so. And the professor also demonstrates, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to use muscle, and he's not able to do it. And then he's like, okay, now I'm going to do something interesting. And this is the whole concept kind of like behind some of the stuff that I do. This is like, he basically calls it his ultimate technique. And he says, you have to become stupid. So he kind of just like starts having like this weird look on his face, like he's just like, a screw got turned off or something. So he's just, I can't do it, but he just, I don't know, he just looks like he's not thinking, you know. And so from there, he's able to do it. Not super impressive, at least it's nothing like super dynamic, but he's able to actually lift his arms up, which is, you know, that's pretty impressive considering that the dude is like, you know, pushing all his weight and trying to press the arms down. And this professor doesn't look like anything, you know, athletic or anything like that. So you know he's using some sort of physics or some sort of leverage. But he basically said this. The whole concept is that it takes 0.5 seconds for the brain to register what's going on and then to react against that. And when you basically become stupid, like you're not thinking, he says when that happens, then you're able to eliminate that 0.5 second delay, and therefore you have an advantage. And he actually goes into detail explaining more how this little test that they were doing demonstrates that, because they start asking him more questions and stuff, and I don't want to go into that and eat up all the time. So anyway, the interesting part is they do some more techniques that involve the principles of physics, and he goes into formulas and stuff, and it's pretty interesting. He's like, Did you learn this in basic physics? You should know this. This is a super basic formula, and this is we're applying this, and blah 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 blah. And it's pretty cool sounding and everything. And I was terrible at physics, but anyway, moving along. One of the comedians was actually, he had taken Kyokushin Karate, which is, Kyokushinkai is an organization. It's known for full contact karate, right? It's one of the most brutal, hardcore karate styles out there. And so anyway, this guy took it for, I don't know, was it a year or something like that? Maybe way less. Anyway, he goes to his old school. And one of the things that I probably I forgot to mention was that this comedian guy, while he was learning under the professor, I think he learned for like 3 or 4 days. The professor, the physics professor, was very, very impressed with him and said that he is not normal, that he is able to acquire this stuff a lot faster, probably because genetics or something, that the way he's living is based off more on instinct rather than cognitive thought. And he says that's very, very difficult for the average human being to do. So the professor was quite impressed with him, and apparently this comedian was doing a lot of the more difficult moves naturally. So anyway, this comedian guy, he goes to his old karate school, the Kyokushin Karate School. He goes there, and he decides to spar with the instructor, who, when they sparred before, the instructor just beat him up no problem. This time around, he was going to use all the methods that he learned from this, physics professor. So he, made his brain stupid, so to speak, and they start sparring. And he lasted like, I don't know, was it 7 minutes or 12 minutes? I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly, but he lasted way, way longer than what he had before. And it was really cool because the karate instructor was actually, I mean, he seemed a little irritated with this guy. He said he kind of acted like this dude doesn't come to class anymore and saying stuff like that. And plus, on top of that, he's basically getting challenged on national TV. I thought the karate instructor took it pretty well. So they sparred, full contact, and he gave credit to this comedian guy, saying that he moved much better than before. Is kind of the credit that he gave him. And he also said that I gave him a couple of moves that the old comedian would have, he would have just absolutely have quit already. And he took several shots that were, I know there were decently hard hits, and he was able to continue on. So there's definitely an improvement. There's definitely a change of some kind here. So the karate instructor acknowledged that, which was pretty cool, And so anyway, just thinking about this whole idea of making the brain stupid and getting that 0.5 second advantage, I thought it was kind of an interesting thing. It kind of went into along the lines of mushin, which is no mind, and you hear that in some of the martial arts, that you want to be at that state where there is no mind. And you also hear about like muscle memory. You want to put stuff into muscle memory. And for me, working with body mechanics and training with the sticks constantly, and the videos that I'm making to help you guys with the tutorials and stuff, is all about repetitions and putting it into muscle memory, becoming more efficient in your movements, in your body mechanics. And I think this, this show kind of like backed that up in a way that you want it in your muscle memory, so you're not thinking, that it just naturally comes out. If you're thinking about it, then it's going to be too slow. You're going to have problems, because the other person is, when they attack you, they have the advantage already. I mean, everyone knows that, reaction is not as fast as action. So the person making the first action already has the advantage. And then on top of that, your brain is like seeing, boom, something like this, and you have to react to that. And it takes 0.5 seconds for all that, supposedly, for all that to register in here. And then you have to come out with the proper, response or something like that, So it seems to me like you're going to be behind, you know, in not just the 0.5 seconds, but also with, because you are reacting, so you're already double behind. So I thought it was kind of interesting in that sense. So to me, the lesson that I learned here was to rely more so on, you know, first of all, you have to practice and make it muscle memory. Once it becomes muscle memory, you really want to kind of focus on that autopilot thing. So in training, I mean, it's nice to work on combos, it's nice to work on fixed patterns and stuff like that, but also when you're putting it all together, when you're free flowing, and I think that's where this kind of comes into play. When you're free flowing, you want to go into that autopilot mode, and it's not just doing whatever the, you know, free flowing isn't just whatever, do whatever comes to mind, do whatever the heck you feel like. It's responding to, you know, whatever's coming your way at the same time. You know, you're responding in a way that's very natural to you, and hopefully by natural, we're meaning the stuff that you put in a ton of practice, the muscle memory stuff is what's coming out, instead of, you know, just closing your eyes and balling up, or, you know, the more natural reactions like that. Hopefully that it is a trained response, but that trained response is instinctive. So anyway, I thought it was just kind of interesting, and I wanted to share my 2 cents with you guys on that. So thank you for listening, and take care, folks.